And man, it may need, your gift of discernment needs to come alive on that situation. The gift of discernment. It is to evaluate, to acknowledge, to point out. It's to recognize something and identify it for what it is. The times that you felt in your spirit when you encounter a situation or a person or something and you go, that's not right. How many of you ever felt the before? I don't know how else to say that. You went, Gentlemen, how many times your wife has said to you, I don't trust them? And you just think, well, anyway. Yeah, we'd be wise men to listen. Oftentimes, men are a little bit slower, it seems, in the discerning of spirits. No, come on. She's going, and you're going, and that becomes a whole conversation right there. So therefore, you don't operate in a word of wisdom, and all of a sudden she's sitting there going, I knew it. I knew it. The enemy uses counterfeits in order to deceive us and bring fear. As recently as this situation with the annex, I won't tell you where, I won't tell you who, I won't tell you how, but we had another building we were looking at and very serious about it right before we secured the one we're in. And we spent, I'm going to say 2 months dreaming about the first building. Oh, man, we know which ones we had our plan. Went through some of the processes with the owners. Again, I'm being just very vague on all of this stuff on purpose. And one of the folks who had that gift of wisdom I really drew upon, and there were many in this process, but this specific part of it was the actual deal creation that we were getting ready to step into, the lease agreement. And I took that person with me to sit at the table with this owner. And we had been needing some direct answers from the owner, some clear answers on some numbers, on some policies. Things were vague. We were excited about something, but it was vague. And make a long story short, we came all the way to the deal table. I had a folder this thick of all the things that we had put together about the property. We had a lease agreement in our hands. We read through it and sent it to our real estate attorney. There were things that were still just too vague. And as I sat across that table, and I had never done this process before, ever. I mean, I'd never been at the deal table before. As I sat there, the gentleman on the other side, as I asked these questions, said, this number doesn't match up with this number in this process. Can you tell me what it would be like if we ran into this situation? And he laughed, and man, you're slick, Pastor Mainers. I didn't catch that. I didn't really put numbers together on that, and I'm sorry. I didn't. I'll get that back to you in a couple days. Let's get this thing happening. And I thought, that doesn't sit right with me. And I followed up with a second question. And I said, I just need to know before we do any of this. And I'm wondering, did I really miss something? Is he really right on this? And in my gut, now watch this. You need to understand this and really hear my heart on this. I was sitting there for all of you. Does that make sense? This was not my money on the table. This was more important than my money. This was your money. And we sat there, and it's a lot of your money. And I sat there and I thought, something's not right here. He's complimenting me and telling me how good of a deal maker I am and how he's just a country boy and everything. And I shut my folder and I looked to the gentleman from Canvas who was with me and I said, we'll get back to you. And we got up and we walked out. And I sat in the truck and I shut the door. He sat in my truck and he shut the door. And I don't even think we looked at each other. I just kept looking straight ahead, and I said, I don't trust him. And we walked away from that deal. That may not be a lot of money to you, but it was $100,000 over the 2-year lease. And I thought, can't do it. It's wrong in my spirit. I have discerned something that I don't trust. That's bigger than me, because I don't do business deals. I'm not that guy. I've never been in school. I'm not that guy. But higher than me, greater than me, a gift for a specific use was in operation that day. And I believe it dovetailed with the word of knowledge and the word of wisdom on what to do. It wasn't 24 hours until another guy from our church says, I got a second property. Let's go look at it tomorrow. And we did, and we're in it today. That's God's heart, I think. I believe that. I really believe that. Let me fast forward very quickly, and Ralph, you can join me up front. But let me fast forward through this very quickly. I hope this is making sense to you. Don't allow the enemy to cloud the clear thinking that God has promised you. Do you understand that you are destined to have the clear mind of Christ? That is your portion, your ability, what God's gift for you is. Don't allow the enemy to cause division. I believe one of the great benefits of the gift of discerning of spirits is that you're able to say, man, the enemy's trying to work this in my marriage, in my relationships here at church. Do you know how easy it is for people to disagree at church and a wedge to be drawn in on stuff? We sat telling stories last night, and I had a gentleman tell me, he goes, you know, Aaron, there may be things we won't disagree on in the future. He goes, but I am here to follow this vision and to go where you're going. And he goes, and we'll just talk about other stuff at some point. And that was telling me, man, we are not going to be only doctrinally minded, but we're going to be missionally minded first. And I believe God gives us the gift of the discerning of spirits to know where things. Now notice this is not called the gift of suspicion. Suspicion is in the flesh. Discerning of spirits is in the spirit. Suspicion's not of God. Suspicion doesn't take you closer to the heart of God. The gift of the discerning of spirits is not the ability to find all of the faults in someone. It's important. If what we're saying and what we're doing and what we're trying to communicate is always to the negative side, then its source is probably not the Spirit of God. It's just the flesh. Don't use it to find faults in folks. It is not a critical spirit. The discerning of spirits is not a critical spirit. The discerning of spirits also is not presumption. Presumption is the enemy of true discernment. We've seen the tendency or the temptation for someone to know 1/10 of the story and then to begin talking with someone as if they knew 100% of the story, and it's because they presumed upon 10% of knowledge. Remember what I said earlier. It's a pure environment that is only supplied by the Spirit of God. As a matter of fact, it would serve a situation best if we were to blind ourselves to the obvious. A lot of times people have spoken in the name of God, but they're really, if they had one eye, they could figure things out by just watching. And so make sure that the heart is pure. Make sure that the environment is pure. So here are 3 things very quickly to help you in operating in the spiritual gifts, and we'll end it with this. Number 1, and this is the start of it all, be hungry and willing to allow God to work in you. First, be hungry. Just live hungry. Live hungry for more of Him. God, if there's a part of my Christian walk with you that I've never jumped into and study, or if I've never heard taught about, or if I've heard it was taught a whole different way or something, Lord, I just want to be hungry for all that is you, and watch God work in your life like that. Be hungry and watch God work in you. Number 2, love needs to be the undercarriage motivation for discernment and for the gifts of the Spirit. Love. Love for people. That heart that starts when your heart breaks at somebody else's need. Genuine love and compassion. Because it's only when we are living pure like that can we purely operate in these gifts. Third one, love comes before peace, and peace comes before perception. When God speaks to you and tells you something, just understand that when God speaks to you, it's going to be peace tied to it. Even if it's a volatile situation or a drama-filled situation, God's peace will be evident in the situation, and He can begin working in you.